Hey, I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic, and this is the Real Critic Roundtable. You haven't seen me in a minute because I've been busy. I've been busy, but KB been busy too, and I'm so happy that she had an opportunity to join us. She been bugging me, right? See, this is how you know that you have good friends is that they be like, Reggie, when we gonna get together? We ain't talking about no movies. I mean, what's up with that? And KB been busy. KB, what's been on the professional front? You've been doing. I know there's no junkets or anything like that, but what you got? What you got working?
Well, there are still some interviews happening, mostly with directors. And of course, I went to San Diego Comic Con, which is always a great time. But I was able to talk to a lot of people about a lot of animated work that they're doing and then Audible Originals. So, I am in full support of the strike. And so, animation actually is in a different guild from what I hear. So, it does not fall underneath that. So I was able to talk to some showrunners and some supervising producers and supervising directors there for the beat. And then, be able to just talk about Audible Originals, which are really, really intriguing series, through Audible. It's a little bit different, but it feels like a TV show, but of course you're listening to it. And so very, very intriguing work there as well. So you can catch all of my San Diego Comic Con interviews and activations, kind of some behind the scenes exclusives of some really really dope activations that they had this year, all on the beat, so comicsbeat.com.
So I got to ask you at least a few questions before we get into our movies for this week. The first is that animation is your jam, right? You like animation, don't you?
I do like some animation. Yeah, yeah. And so I was actually doing animated TV shows, which is great. Season 2 of Teenage Euthanasia, which is a wild Adult Swim
Of what?
television
Of which
show.
one?
Teenage Euthanasia. It's a really, really wild animated series on Adult Swim. It's like insane, but it's so funny and it's really well done. So I was able to talk to the co-creators of that series. And I also got an opportunity to talk to Matthew Cherry, who won the Oscar for Hair Love. And so Hair Love is being called Young Love now. It will come out on Max later on this year, and so I got to speak to him and Mark Davis, and they were so lovely. I can't wait for everyone to see it. I know that they dropped the trailer at San Diego Comic Con, but they are so lovely just talking about the series, and I'm excited to see how it's expanded upon for sure.
Well. That's fantastic. So you did that. But what would you say was other than Cherry? What was something? Who might you have talked to that we don't normally get to speak with? Because we're always trying to chase, I guess that celebrity, so to speak. Was there anybody else that I've mentioned?
Literally everyone that I spoke to had a hand in the productions, and they weren't, necessarily the talent, but they did work very, very hard. There were a lot of showrunners. Adam Muto, I spoke to him. He is the showrunner of Adventure Time, the new Adventure Time spinoff, and it's called Fiona and Cake. And he's kind of been with the series from the beginning, in various
Wow.
capacities. So being able to talk to him, being able to talk to Ryan Shannon, who is one of the supervising directors on it as well. So again, everyone I spoke with, had a hand in making these shows what they are, um, and bringing kind of the brilliance and the fun and the everything to the forefront. And they are not necessarily considered big talent, but they are talent in my eyes. And they need
Yeah.
to be in everyone
Yeah.
else's eyes because they are the ones that make, kind of these shows work from front to back and upside down. They're putting their blood, their sweat, and their tears into this art. And, I think everyone should watch it. They should be compensated properly for it. And, they should also get the credit where the credit is due. And so it's always lovely talking to those individuals.
Well, I'm really glad that you bring that up because I wasn't going to talk about this. I am actually next week headed to it's in Chicago, but it's Fan Expo Chicago,
Mhm.
and they'll have some of the stuff that you might see at a Comic Con. They'll have people like Michael J. Fox, and but they'll be pushing whatever projects that they do. My understanding is that they can attend these types of festivals. Maybe it's not exactly like Comic-Con, but they'll be signing autographs and things of that nature. But they'll also have a lot of workshops, and I saw that they'll have some workshops in the animation area. They'll have some things from a comics area. So they'll have a number of things, and it'll be my first time going to Fan Expo here in Chicago from the 10th through the 13th. So hopefully I'll have a fantastic experience like you did. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really glad that you shared that information.
Yeah,
Uh,
I hope that you have a good time, and I hope that you are able to, talk to some producers, some, directors, some people who really, did a lot of the work and helped a lot of the other individuals kind of create these wonderful projects, just as long as it complies with the strike rules, of course.
right, absolutely. The other thing I want to ask you about before we get into the movies is this Audible thing. So can you
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that?
So there's an Audible series that Felicia Day created, and Felicia Day is very well known in the sci-fi community for her work. She is an actress, but she created this series, and I actually can't share too much about it because there are actually like tons and tons of spoilers, so we're not allowed to.
Okay.
But her and her team actually created this really, really dope kind of sci-fi Audible original series, and it's called Third Eye. And so I was able to hear the very first episode, and it's really, really
Oh,
good. It's really, really interesting. Just really, it's centered around a young girl who then becomes a woman who essentially holds the power to change the world. And just through a series of events, things go very wrong, and she's really trying to find herself again, and find what her purpose is again, and living that out. And so it's really, really interesting for sure.
wow. And so this is interesting to me because I've done Audible a couple of times, but not like a series. It'll be maybe a book that I want to hear or a podcast or something of that nature. But a series, you
Yeah.
seem pretty excited.
This is actually my first time listening to a series, and I only heard the first episode. So I'll have to wait until, it comes out to actually hear the rest of the episodes and see how it concludes. But to me, just listening to that very first episode, it actually felt more like an episode of television that I was just listening to. And so, it was an opportunity for me to create kind of visually in my mind what I imagined it to be. And I think that that's
Absolutely.
kind of one of the benefits of doing an Audible original. And it's something that I asked not only Felicia, because I was able to talk to London Hughes, who is one of the voice actresses on the project, and also the director, Jonah Ray Rodriguez. And I was able to kind of ask them, kind of um, what they hope audiences kind of make, because what I envisioned in my mind is probably, wildly different from what they envisioned while they were creating it, which will be wildly different from the next consumer's kind of like visual that they're putting together when they hear these voices. So I think that that's also kind of an intriguing part, is that, everyone will have their own kind of visual interpretation of what it is, while listening to this story.
Well, excellent. Well, I see you always are doing some exciting things, and I'm really excited that you decided to share. Man, some exciting stuff. Let's get into this movie, and this is one that has really gotten a lot of fanfare. I I didn't know anything about this film, and people were coming to me saying, "Hey, Reggie, have you seen it? Have you seen it?" I'm not even gonna say the name yet. And I'm like, "No, I haven't seen it." They said it's out. You haven't seen this movie? I don't know why. And being a film critic, most of the times we get pre notices or whatever, but I don't remember myself receiving some pre notices about this. And it has some accomplished actors in it, and it's on an accomplished network. I'm gonna do that little drum roll. What is this movie I'm talking about, KB?
Well, of course, I'm really so glad that people are watching it and that the reception is really good for They Clone Tyrone, because I actually really, really love this film. We've been waiting a long time for it. It was supposed to come out last year, and then they pushed the release date to this year. And I had the opportunity in June before the strike to not only see the film, but also get to interview John Boyega and Tiana Paris, who are two of the leads, and alongside Jamie Foxx, and then as well as Charles D. King, who is, the head of Macro, and Jewel Taylor, who is the co-writer and director. And the film is just so deeply layered. It's a comedy, it's a drama, it's intriguing. It's a lot of different elements when it comes to, some is this government corruption, and what is happening, and do we need to be scared to eat the fried chicken? There's so many different layers that are happening in this film. But basically, the three of them, it is a pimp, a prostitute, and a drug dealer kind of go down this path where they uncover that one of them is being cloned. And so, if you haven't seen it, run, go watch it and watch it, and then come watch us because we're definitely going to spoil it. I mean, it's been out for a bit of time at this point. But when I say that, it starts with one of them being cloned, and then they realize that more of them are being cloned. Things start to unravel and unfold in a really interesting way. But one of the things I can say is it really brings the community together, because here you are having this kind of unlikely trio that start almost a revolution against the corporation that is doing this. Now, they are just in one city, and that's what we find kind of at the end of the film. They're doing what they can for their one city, but the US is filled with cities. It's huge. And they haven't, in my personal opinion, ruled out that this isn't happening all over the world. They're really just in the US. And so you don't know what's happening to these bodies. But there were a lot of different themes and messages around Black body autonomy, around not being able to kind of trust research that's happening, surveillance, and then even just us thinking that we have safe spaces, and how this film kind of uncovers whether or not that's true. Because in this film, there's not a single space in the US, I'll say, which in my opinion, watching this film is probably a single space on earth where Black people have the freedom to be who they are and they're not being surveillanced in some sort of way. And so even Kiefer Sutherland's character, he's only in there for a short period of time, but you know what he represents, right? So it's interesting. There's so many different layers that this film has, but I thought it was really, really, really well done for sure.
So it's really interesting is that I rate a film, um my scale is 3 to 3, I mean four reels, so the top is 4 for me. And when I rate a film 4, it's a film that I want to watch again. So I want to say this: everybody I've talked to loved this film. I liked it a lot. I just didn't love it, and the reason I say that is that I was saying to myself, Reggie, would you watch this again? Maybe one more time to see some stuff that maybe I might have missed. But this is not for me. For me, but my friends, they're like, look, man, this is so good. It was so funny. It was so deep. All of that stuff. So I just want to say, just say where I came from with it. I was like, I might watch it again to see some stuff that I didn't, because there are so many messages. I really agree with you that they're saying more than that topical message that the government is doing these conspiracies to keep us in check. They're saying more than that. There's a lot of other things underneath that. But if I'm going through the stations and I see the film on TV, would I stop and just watch it again? I have some movies like that where I don't care what point in time the film is at, I'm gonna watch it. For me, and this is getting off the subject a little bit, but for me, like Love and Basketball is one of those movies for me. Is that I'm watching it and it could be at 2 minutes left in the movie and I'm gonna stop and watch it. It could be 4 minutes left, and maybe it's because for me, this film is a little bit unsettling.
Mm.
If you really think about it, it's yeah, they make fun and there's jokes and stuff like that, but I'm thinking maybe it was just a little bit too unsettling for me to really believe, to really, because I feel in some ways, and I think our communities feel in some ways, that these types of things are things that happen to us on a regular basis. That there is that surveillance. There are doing things in our community. When we talk about the whole Contra issue, and you look at what's Snowfall, the movie Snowfall, I mean the series Snowfall, and how it's, hey, let's put these drugs in your community. So maybe it's just that it was a little bit unsettling, but I think that this was fantastic all the way around. So I would recommend it for people. I'm just saying where I came out for it. I think when we look at Fontaine, who's that street dealer, we look at Slick, who's basically his nemesis. We look at Yo-Yo, who is a street worker with better ambitions than just being that. And I like that, by the way, that they didn't just make her. This is what she does. She's trying to do something else. She's doing this to do something else. I think that the social commentary that they make in this film is very, very thought provoking, and this is probably one of those films that'll stay around for a long time because people will refer back to how many messages they make. The last thing I guess I'll say is that I thought it was inventive, I thought it was ingenious, and yet a little off-putting, and that's really where I came from on that.
Listen, I will say I think that that was the purpose, right? Like, I think the purpose of the film is to make you uncomfortable. I think it is supposed to spark thought. I think at the end, when we finally figure out who Tyrone is, because of course everyone's watching the film from top to bottom, they're thinking to themselves, who is Tyrone? Like, we know who Fontaine is. We know that Fontaine is being cloned, but who is Tyrone? And so it's really not until the very last moments of the film that we find out who Tyrone is. And Joel perfectly kind of tees it up for what I know will be a sequel. Has to be, because there's still so many unanswered questions, right? There's
It
still so
has
many
to be.
things. Again, what's going to happen in the other cities? They mentioned Fontaine was like, oh, I could join, Slick and Yo-Yo on this journey to go into other cities and seeing what's happened. The cast chemistry. I would be remiss if I didn't say that the three of them are brilliant together on screen. John Boyega is doing a lot of work and a lot of heavy lifting in this film,
Heavy
just
lifting.
because he is the one who is kind of uncovering this in real time, and we're looking at it from his perspective because he's the first clone, right, that we meet or that we see, and then also because he is, again, spoiler alert, he is the mastermind kind of behind the cloning. We see the older version of him, who is the original, but I'm gonna put that in quotes because again, who is Tyrone? So like, he is the older Fontaine, but we don't know who Tyrone. So there's just a lot of connections that we still are yet to uncover, which is why I think it perfectly tees up for a sequel. But yeah, I think that like what Yo-Yo represents is, first off, she is the most brilliant person in the film. I just go ahead and say that she is the most brilliant from an intellectual perspective. She is, particularly in this trio. She's the one doing the digging and the uncovering. Fontaine is really emotional, and he does a lot of things based on his emotions, which kind of makes sense. I mean, if you found out you were being cloned, your first
Hello,
thought probably
hello.
wouldn't be to think about it from a strategic perspective, but Yo-Yo was always thinking 5 steps ahead. And so what I appreciate is that, sex work is work. That's the end, period. But what I appreciate is that Yo-Yo represents the fact that no one is their job. Like, we are all fully formed human beings. Like, no one is what they
No,
do
I,
for a
I
living.
I love that.
and
I
and
I
Yo-Yo's
love that.
obsession with Nancy Drew is hilarious to me. Like, the girl gets everything from Nancy Drew, and I'm like, please, Yo-Yo.
I really like that because it's so funny that Nancy Drew was it,
Nancy Drew is
back
the
in the
one.
day. So we had Nancy Drew books. It's like
Mhm.
Nancy Drew was it. And I want to make a mention about the acting. I think that Fox plays this pimp fantastically. It,
Mhm.
it it, there is a fine line between playing a character and playing a caricature, and he doesn't come off as it doesn't come off as over the top to me. It seems like right there in the pocket, and so I think he does a really good job there. Then when we talk about um, Tiana, she she is precise. Her timing is so good in this, and when you're with a comedic actor like a Fox, and the fact that she can have the right timing on all this, you could say it's the director, but you got to give it to her. You have to give it to her. That I think that she just does a really good job there. And then I think Boyega is masterful. You talk about this whole thing of doing the heavy lifting. He does a lot of heavy lifting in this because not trying to give all the spoilers there, but he does a lot of heavy lifting and he's good.
I mean, he's
He's
playing the majority. He's playing a lot of characters. Like that's the reality, and so they each have
he
to be
play,
kind of different and unique. And he's good. He's very good. I honestly cannot see this film working with any other trio. I should say that. I don't think there are another trio of actors who would be able to pull this off and play off of each other. And just through my conversations with Tiana and John and my interviews with them, I know that Jamie Foxx was ad-libbing a lot of things as he normally does because he is silly and quite frankly, Jamie Foxx is, in my opinion, probably top three most talented human beings like walking the planet currently. And you can tell because I feel like he's just naturally funny. And so some of the things in this film, you know, he made up off the top of his head for sure.
that's funny. That's funny. Well, I already know from you it's a watch it, right?
So watch it. It's definitely a watch it for me. And I think it's a watch it for a lot of reasons. Listen, I will say I understand your discomfort. But again, I think that's the purpose. I think the idea behind it is to make you uncomfortable, to make you think, to make you question, and to see a lot of different layers and things unfold on screen, but to also walk away and be like, dang, okay, what's next? And I think the film does that really quite brilliantly, in my personal opinion. I think, Joel, I think we will see a lot. From him moving forward, so he was great. And also, if you get a chance to check it out, check out my interviews for Nerdophiles because we had a great time. I truly had a great time with all of them. Listen, this film to me represents, a film for Black people by Black people that was unapologetic, also a good time, also made you think. It's so unique and what truly one of the best films I've seen this year.
Well, I will tell you though, because of the movie, that's why I cut my hair because I'm not using any hair products. I'm just not doing it. I'm not
Now,
doing it.
Reggie.
No more fried chicken at this residence. I'm just letting you know. No hair products, no fried chicken. No. I think that they did a good job too. This is a watch it for me as well. And yeah. Thank you so much for discussing this.